such a lonely number when your mind is on another.
I'm Andrea Askowitz.
I'm Zorina Frey.
I'm Allison Langer, and this is Writing Class Radio. You'll hear true personal stories and learn how to write your own stories. Together, we produce this podcast, which is equal parts heart and art. By heart, we mean the truth in a story. By art, we mean the craft of writing. No matter what's going on in our lives, writing class is where we tell the truth. It's where we work out our shit. There's no place in the world like writing class, and we want to bring you in. Today on our show, we have a special guest host, Zorina Frey. Zorina has been taking our classes for years, and now she teaches one of our first draft classes on Wednesday night from 6 to 7 Eastern Time. Zorina, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here. It's going down. It's happening.
Going under.
I wish our podcast could see Zorina the way she's like smiling so big, like her eyes are tiny slits. She's like so nervous about like where her name comes up on the
and
script.
She's wearing a Writing Class Radio t-shirt, so she's wearing our swag.
I am
Check
ready.
our website for swag.
I am here for it.
Zorina, tell us a little bit about who you are. Like, give us a quick bio.
My God, you guys don't have time for that.
Just give us the Cliff Notes.
I'm a poet. I write SEO content. I'm coming near the end of my MFA in creative writing, which is focusing on poetry and creative nonfiction. It does matter. It is worth it because storytelling is all that we see on TV and in our mobile devices. If we didn't have the written word, and with our short attention spans, we have to learn how to say a whole lot and very little. And that's what poetry is. So that's my little soapbox for why I spent so much money. MFA.
Was Zorina going to cry when she said that on the money part? Where are you getting your MFA?
Converse University. It's in South Carolina. So that's a whole other thing right there. Just going to the South to learn literature, and I should say to master literature, just being immersed in the culture and meeting other Southern poets, other Black women Southern poets is just an experience all in itself. It's something I would have never probably have done if I didn't pursue my MFA in the South. Be on the lookout. I'm working on my manuscript of poetry that even you will love to read, Allison.
Well, if I can understand it, I don't get, I don't understand poetry because I'm so slow. I don't get jokes. I need them. I need things explained, but I'm sure I will dive in and learn and enjoy it.
Well, yeah, my style is not so obscure. Mm-hmm. So that's why you'll like it.
I want to interrupt you for a second. Zorina Frey did a spoken word poem on our podcast. It was episode 82, and it was called A Poet's Response to Senseless Violence. And it was so powerful and beautiful and important. And so please go back to episode 82 and listen to Zorina read her poetry. Yay!
Woo!
Today on our show, we're talking about speculative memoir. If you don't know what that is, well, you're not alone. I had no idea what that was either until our retreat in Guatemala this past February 2022. This is when Andrea gave out a prompt and read what she wrote, and everyone was like, damn. Anyway, after hearing this episode, hopefully you'll understand a new way of thinking about telling the truth. Imagination is a form of truth, as long as the narrator establishes what she's doing, right? So if that's the case, then anything goes. On today's episode, Andrea shares her story, and we hope you'll like it.
The story that I'm about to read came out of a prompt, and I gave the prompt, how did it all start? And what I was trying to get at was to write a story about a time that you were not present, either your moment of conception or your moment of birth. And this, obviously, the narrator was not there in real time. So, but the reader, the listener, I hope will understand that.
Right. Because usually we think it's a point of view violation to write about things that you can't possibly know. And so this is one of them. But in order to skirt around the point of view violation, you have managed to put this in a way that makes us trust you.
Right. Let's hope that that's true. That's what I'm hoping for.
Back with Andrea's story after the break.
We're back. This is Allison Langer, and you are listening to Writing Class Radio. Up next is our very own Andrea Askowitz reading her story called Then and Now.
A few days ago, my wife and I walked down the cobblestone streets of Antigua, Guatemala. 54 years ago, my parents walked down the same cobblestone streets. There were flowers everywhere, then too. I couldn't tell you what kind, but I know they were planted 4 days after the new moon because I learned that Mayans plant according to the moon. Mayans are ancient people whose customs and wisdom have been passed down generations. My mom knows flowers from years spent in the garden club, but I didn't inherit this knowledge. My parents had been married 6 years when they made that trip to Antigua, Guatemala in 1967. They were totally in love. At least my mom was, because this was still the beginning. My brother had already been born, a 1-year-old, and was left back in the States with my grandma Ruth. My mom never stopped loving my dad, not even after she took up women's lib and the inequities became clear to her. She developed a slow rage because of the way society treated women. My mom graduated cum laude from the University of Miami, but in 1962, she didn't go to law school like her brother did. She was given 3 options: nurse, teacher, wife. She chose teacher wife and taught 7th grade English to put my dad through optometry school so he could become an eye doctor. My mom stopped working to raise my brother and me. She joined the garden club, the quilt guild, the National Organization for Women. She needed interests of her own. She had interests of her own. She made dinner for my dad and her children until I was old enough to fend for myself, and she spent more time exploring her interests. Now I make dinner for my children, but so does my wife. We switch off. Cook or clean is our policy. I don't remember my dad cleaning, not once. Even though my dad understood the limitations put on women, he took my mom's rage personally. There was the time he took a ski trip with his buddies instead of her, and so she sold his Cadillac. There was the time she had thyroid surgery, and he was as good as a toddler taking care of her. Fuck him, she said, but that's not why he cheated. Or maybe her anger and his position in society is exactly why he cheated. Men cheated. But even after all that, even today, 23 years after their divorce, I still see something in her eyes when she looks at him. My mom is loyal, and so am I. People who know us well often say, apple tree, apple tree. It was 1967. They were alone on a trip to Antigua, Guatemala. Why Guatemala? No say. My parents were curious. They wanted to see and do things. They wanted their children to see and do things too, like the time we drove from Miami to Alaska. I was 12 on that trip. I read Wifey in the van we sometimes slept in. I remember the scene where the wife lay in the sun, something about her bush in the heat. Even now, I feel a little thrill when I think of that long drive to Alaska and the wife in that Judy Blume book I may have been too young to read. In 1967, I didn't feel anything because that day in Antigua at the hotel, maybe even the same hotel my wife and I stayed in just days ago, I wasn't even considered yet. Unless, and this is possible, my mom conjured me, but not so she and I could repeat the relationship she had with my grandma Ruth, but so she could relive the role of mother-daughter differently. So my mom could have a child who could run free in the yard with the neighborhood kids and not worry about getting overheated. So my mom could raise a child to love or at least like how she looked and not be flown to New York City at 16 for a nose job. Conjuring was passed down to me. It was something I just knew. And at 34, when I was ready to have a child of my own, I got pregnant using donated sperm. People on the street said I was having a boy, something about carrying out in front and not losing my looks, whatever it was. Everyone had a theory. But I had a dream. And in the dream, the baby was long and lean, dressed in a white onesie with dark curly hair, a girl. I set in motion a repeat of the relationship I have with my mom. In the summer of 1967, 40 weeks before I was born, my mom probably came out of the bathroom in a towel. Or no, my dad came out in his towel, the hotel towel, not the one he wore 24/7 on weekends my entire childhood. My dad wore a brown terry cloth skirt held together by Velcro. The image might sound creepy, a middle-aged man padding through the house in just a skirt, but I see it more relaxed. On weekends, my dad was always taking a nap or waking up from one. That night in their hotel room in Antigua, my dad came out of the bathroom in the hotel towel. He was small and muscular, with dark skin, hairy chest, dark eyes, and dark, short, curly hair, big lips, and perfect teeth, while my mom waited, eager under the covers. My mom told me years later she always said yes. They always said yes to each other. So nothing needed to be said when my dad dropped his towel on the floor and slipped into the bed where my mom waited. She was naked and beautiful, big breasts, which you may want to psychoanalyze. Not her breasts, but my love and appreciation for large breasts on other women that developed as I grew up. My mom was self-conscious under the covers because even with those breasts and long legs and her round and impossibly blue eyes against black hair, she never felt beautiful. I hope she felt close enough in that moment. I think she did because that's the moment when the conjuring began. This was the moment my mom, the witch woman, and my dad, the peasant man from the poor side of town, came together and made me. I don't know this for sure, but I think it was 4 days after the new moon.
Very cool. Very, very cool. I want to start with Zorina because I've already heard this once. It was in Guatemala in February. So I think from being hit with it for the first time, I would love to get Zorina's impression. Like what worked, what didn't work? Did she trust you? Everything.
I was really fascinated with just the turns where she was taking us into the past and then seamlessly bringing us back into the future. And I think that's why this is such a successful piece of speculative memoir writing. I detected the first turn when the narrator says that the mother put the dad through optometry school. And so that made me lean in with interest because she builds this description of the mother of being this independent. What was the word that she used, Allison? It was like...
she took up women's lib.
Yeah, women's lib. That already gave the reader, an idea of who this woman is. And then so for the turn to be that she put her husband through optometry school, is like, okay, what's going on here? And so it just makes you a little bit more interested in how this story is going to evolve.
She also graduated cum laude from the University of Miami, but didn't go to law school like her brother.
Is she supposed to talk?
Oh, sorry.
Shit. I think we need to talk just a second about speculative memoir. And I know absolutely nothing about it. So if Zorina, you know anything about this, feel free to jump in. Or Andrea, if you guys want to just discuss it and what it meant, like having these contracts with the reader or, whatever it is, let's talk about that because I think that's really important for people to know.
So I'm familiar with the term speculative fiction. Speculative memoir is the first I've heard of it. The term for speculative fiction is a broad category of elements that do not exist in reality, recorded history, nature, or the present universe. So to coined the term speculative memoir is almost a little controversial as creative nonfiction, right? But as writers, you can make up stuff and you're allowed. Once you get to the point where you know what you're talking about and you know how to write, then you can do things like what Andrea just did here and create this braided memoir that strings the reader in and out of the past. It was really well done.
I love what you just said about writers making stuff up, and totally we do. But I actually didn't make up this idea of speculative memoir. And I think about a year ago, I read in the Rumpus something that I then looked back this morning. I came prepared, you guys, and the Rumpus printed a piece called "What to Read When You're Writing Speculative Memoir," and it's by Laraine Herring. And I just want to read the first paragraph of this little "What is speculative memoir?" It really tells you what speculative memoir is. So it goes like this. You're looking around your room, wondering if that's a ghost you see behind the curtain, or if it's just your imagination. Then you wonder why you put a "just" before your imagination, as if imagination is anything less than the foundation of everything, as if it could be minimized. And then you wonder if there's a part of you that believes your inner world, your dreams and hauntings and fantasies are less than because only you experience them. You wonder who taught you that. You wonder why you believed them. So this is by a woman who wrote A Constellation of Ghosts, a speculative memoir with ravens. Her name again is Laraine Herring. And I love it because she's basically like saying, why are we the only ones who believe our inner worlds? Isn't our inner world everything? And so speculative memoir, the way that I understand it, puts our inner worlds, our dreams, like belief in ghosts or belief in conjuring women, which is what I said my mom was and I am. We're making that real for the purpose of the story. And even though it's not real that I was there when my parents conceived me, I'm speculating on how
you kind of were. You were there, right? Well,
you see, exactly. It's not just my imagination; it's my imagination,
which is to come
real.
across as you made it up, because I intuitively know that it's a thing. But I guess what I mean to say is that as writers, we make things up, not you, Andrea. Although you might, but
I wish I were that clever.
Yeah, I wanted to mention another way that the narrator weaves us in and out of the past, and she does it with description. The first time I noticed it was when she describes her father. It's in the paragraph that says the summer of 1967, 40 weeks before she was born. And then she talks about the towel and first how gross it is to see her father in a towel. And then it just seamlessly goes into the flabby daddy in the towel to the sexy daddy, the sexy zaddy in the towel. And it was okay. It was like, oh my God, is she talking about her dad being sexy? Oh my God. But we're going with it because we're like, because of the way she brought us into it. Like, we didn't have time to say ew.
Well, she at least stopped. She stopped when the towel hit the floor. Thank God. Yeah.
Allison, he got into bed with my mom.
They got into bed, but we didn't have to see the sheets moving. We didn't have to see the baby sperm coming in. Like, she held off. She left us something to the imagination. She didn't need to tell us about the sex. We got it. So that's why it wasn't creepy. I mean, if it went much further,
for sure.
It would be creepy.
I mean, we're definitely on the red line of creepiness when it comes to talking about parents doing it. So the thing that turns it into a beautiful thing, it's the part when she describes her mother, with the big lips, perfect teeth. And was that the dad?
That's the dad.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Wasn't that the dad?
It was the mother with the big breast. I
How
don't know.
could you forget? She was naked and beautiful, big breasts, which you may want to psychoanalyze. I love that. And then she goes right into herself, my love and appreciation for large breasts on other women that developed as I grew up. I mean, I just thought it was very perfect.
Right. She took us on this mind trip of just, I keep saying time travel because that's what it was. And then she brings us to who she is. So we know who we're talking about. It was just really a great form. The other thing, that I wanted to mention in the way she told this story was the use of poetry. And one of the methods that she used was anaphora. The definition of that is the repetition of a word or a phrase at the beginning of successive clauses. She did that just a little bit, but it was effective, and I need to find it.
It was 1967. Are you talking about that?
No. Not that one. It was so my mom could have a child who could run free in the yard and play kickball with the neighborhood kids and not worry about getting overheated. So my mom could raise a child to love. So it's kind of like this building up. I think if she did it a third time, it will really bring it home. You know, like the Martin Luther King. Andrea is not Martin Luther King. I'm just saying, like, just the style and the form of just when that crescendo of just repetition at the beginning of a clause just kind of swells your heart up and, just brings you to a point.
Anaphora. I'm going to anaphora all the time.
Just walk down the street and just MLK it.
I didn't know what that was, but very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
I did like the repetition of it was 1967 in 1967. And she kept bringing us back. So we see it was 1967. Yeah. I just thought that was really well done too.
Yeah.
Because I'm always lost. And so it's nice to be brought back and okay, we're back there again. Okay, good. I don't know. I think it's definitely easier said than done to weave the present and the future together like this narrator did. And I was very impressed. I remember when she read this in Guatemala and we were all blown away. I mean, it was one of her best prompts, like right out of your head. Like she didn't have time to think about it or anything. It just came right out. And when things like that happen, sometimes I just feel like they're meant to. Sometimes we try so hard to make something come out poetically or well, and this flowed. And so it was a little crazy how it came together. And I'm very impressed.
Thanks. Actually, now I remember how this prompt worked.
So I watched this video class given by Beth Kephart, who's a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. And she's also the author of 30 books, including 2 about writing. So it was during the pandemic, I guess. And she gave this suggestion for a prompt that I thought was so cool. And I wrote it down and I used the same prompt. I was like, as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh my God, I want to try this out on writers in our class. And I saved it up for Guatemala, for the last day in Guatemala. This is how I presented it. Think of a scene you've tried to write, but couldn't because of lack of information. So either you don't remember or for some whatever reason, like this could be a trauma, it could be anything, or maybe you don't remember because you weren't actually there. And this is what I was trying to push myself to do. And so I gave the class the option to go back to the day that you were born, or even go back to the moment of your conception. And I know that sounds creepy, but based on whatever information you have, this is what I told the class, based on whatever information you have, write about that moment. And then I gave 6 kind of like teaser prompts. So number 1, where was this place? And then I gave about 3 minutes more or less for everyone to answer these questions. So number 1, where was this place? Number 2, who was there? 3, when did this occur? 4, who said what? 5, what happened in the end? And 6, why did this happen? I answered all those questions in class with our students. And that's how I wrote Then and Now, the story you just heard.
We'll have these questions up in the metadata so that if anybody wants to try this on their own, they can.
So based on those questions, I noticed that you didn't require, the prompt didn't require to include the narrator for the narrator to insert themselves into this. Did they all do that? Did they not? I mean, were you the only one?
This was the last day of a 7-day workshop, and we have been writing about ourselves every day, 2 or 3 times a day. So I think after doing that, people get used to always inserting themselves in the story, no matter what, because we pound it into them that what we care about most is the narrator. So you got to insert yourself in personal essay and memoir. Has to. So I think people are just groomed to do it.
So this would be kind of like an advanced prompt for memoir writing people, even though anybody can do it. But I feel like I need to try this.
I would love for everyone to try it and post your results on our Facebook page at Writing Class Radio or on Twitter. I would love to see people's responses to this.
This is a question for both of you guys. What inspires you to come up with good prompts? Because I have to say, when I'm coming up with prompts, I'm overthinking it. And I'm like, is this like going to be a good one? And then like, I think I have it. And just when I'm going to present it, I switch it up. And it's just, I feel like, you guys do it effortlessly.
Zorina, I want to tell you a secret, and don't tell our listeners. Anything works as a prompt. Anything. Popcorn.
Then you can always jump on our daily prompts page and just go down the list.
We do have that on our website.
Because I sometimes do that. Sometimes I look out the window and I'm like, bird feeder, or something that's been on my mind. And then I throw it out there. But some days I'm blank and I just jump on the website and I'm like, okay, write about your next door neighbor, whatever's on there. And it just comes to mind. And it doesn't really matter what the prompt is. What's in your head, what your students are going to hear is it's like, they're going to write about exactly what needs to come out, no matter what the prompt is.
Once I tell you that secret, that anything works as a prompt, another thing that I do try to do in terms of like trying to pull this out of students is I do try to get them to conjure up a moment. So like the moment everything changed. Or like today in first draft, Allison gave the prompt, the time you lied, the time you cheated. So that's a really good prompt because it forces people to write a scene. So popcorn might force someone to write a scene if they conjure up a scene of like being in their family room with their whole family eating popcorn, watching a movie, or being in a movie theater or whatever. So scenes are always what we're going for. Anything works as a prompt, but a time when, or a moment when, sends the prompt responder right into a moment. And that's a scene.
Okay. Is there a prompt where like this one wasn't the one? Or do you think it's more about just what the students are willing to disclose?
Yeah, it's not the prompt. It's just the students who are willing or not willing, or maybe sometimes, some prompts are duds. Like sometimes when I come up with a prompt, I mean, a lot of times when I'm writing to prompts, my prompt response they suck. They don't get to anywhere. That's just part of the practice. That's why it's cool to write to prompts every week. For me, I like writing to prompts every week because sometimes the prompt prompts something. Right, Allison? And sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Or you can come to class like Andrea and pretend you're sitting in the class doing a prompt. And then when you get called on, you realize you didn't do shit. And now you have to fess up.
Well, I was working on a story that I'd already started. And so I didn't want to read that because that's not fair. I don't want to do that to first draft. But I used the time to write.
Yeah, I don't really care. If people want to come and just use that 30 minutes to write, I don't care. Sometimes people just want to listen to see what's going on and get inspired. And that's fine too. I don't write every single time. I mean, 99% of the time I do because I force myself because it's really the only time I write all week. And I think it's really good exercise for me. And then there are times I go back and I work on it and then toss it in the trash or in a file, and that is so fine. You can write just for the sake of writing. You don't always have to write to get published or to work on it. It's fine. Sometimes things just need to come out and we're cool with that.
You know what I do? I just keep a Google Doc and that's what I go to every time I log into a writing class. So I have like this massive doc of prompts that I've written. That could be a manuscript for all I know, but I just haven't gone back to it. I mean, I go back to it, but I haven't gone deep down into it unless there's like one that I'm like, oh, I got to finish this one, Do
you know what I do? I write in my notebook. It's sort of like that. Like I keep a giant doc, but I have so many notebooks. And every once in a while, I go through it and I write on the top, in the top margin, like what it's about. Like I just opened that up to, I love to complain. That's like, if I want to write an essay about how I love to complain, there it is on that page,
That's a great prompt too.
I don't know. People pretend they don't love to complain, but I freaking love to. So, like I note what my prompts are about, prompt responses are about in case I want to develop them into stories.
Thank you guys for listening. And thank you for listening to Andrea's story. Thank you, Andrea, for sharing your story. And thank you, Zorina, for coming on the show.
Yay.
Writing Class Radio is produced by Allison Langer, me, Andrea Askowitz, and by Matt Kundle and Evan Serminski at Sound Off Media Company. Theme music is by Courtney Fox. There's more Writing Class Radio on our website, writingclassradio.com, including essays to study, editing resources, video classes, writing retreats, writing prompts, and live online classes. Join our writing community by following us on Patreon. For $10 a month, I'll answer all your publishing questions. And for $25 a month, you get me answering your questions, and you can join our First Draft weekly writers group. You have two options: Tuesdays, 12 to 1 Eastern, or Wednesdays, 6 to 7 Eastern with Zorina Frey, who you just heard today. You'll write to a prompt and share what you wrote. If you're looking to take your writing to the next level, for $125 a month, you'll get First Draft and Second Draft. In Second Draft, each week, 3 people bring in a second draft for feedback. It's awesome. Join the community that comes together for instruction, an excuse to write, and most importantly, the support from other writers. To learn more and to join, go to patreon.com/writingclassradio. A new episode will drop every other Wednesday, so look for us.
There's no better way to understand ourselves and each other than by writing and sharing our stories. Everyone has a story. What's yours?
Produced and distributed by the Sound Off Media Company.